David and Isaac. Right, we want the following judges. Pinker. Ezekiel. Tell him to stop eating and get here. We need him now. Now. Irene. Where's Abena? But before that, today is a very important day because it's the birthday of one of the members of the CAP. So please let us all join in wishing Mr. Tayo, who came all the way from the University of Ilorin, a happy birthday. So however you want, if you want to say happy birthday, if you want to clap, please a round of applause.
Happy birthday.
It's okay.
Come again. Please. Wishing him has no impact on your future. And so we want to wish him a very happy birthday and pray that the best things in life happen to him. Amen. So we are ready for the top 4 teams. And once we mention your team name as having qualified to the final of the 3rd edition of the Hogwarts round robin competition. Before I mention the names, a little history. Hogwarts started in 2016, and the inaugural winners are not here today. In 2017, I think 2017, the winners are here. We can give them a round of applause. Michael Lampa, who is still being contesting the fact that maybe he was carried. We'll see if that will change. I said he's still contesting it. I didn't say he was carried. Maybe I believe that.
He's here to defend his trophy.
And then Isaac Boache. Oh, a round of applause for them, please. And so right. So I'm bad with math, so forgive my order. I'm going to start with a team that broke 3rd. With a combined speaker score of 1,619 and a combined team score of 23. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to announce that the team breaking 3rd for Hogwarts round robin final 2019 is the team Rubius, Hagrid, Erasmus, and Andrew Segbefia. Please, when we mention them, give them a round of applause. A round of applause. Right, 1,600. The team breaking first, and I think the team deserves a great round of applause because it has been an impressive run for them. With a total speaker score, of 1,642, total team points of an impressive 27, dropping only a few points along the way. Ladies and gentlemen, the team Hermione Granger, Faithfulness, and Princess Samoa. Please, a round of applause for them. The second breaking team, also a very impressive run. Combined speaker score 1,649. Please, if we've mentioned your team name already, one representative should step forward. You should by now know what role you intend to pick in which order. So Erasmus, one of you should come. F and Prince, one of you should come. F and Prince, one of you should come. This should be CG, should be away. You know they go anywhere. Right, thank you so much. So please stand there. So the team breaking second, total speaks 1,649, total team points of 24. Ladies and gentlemen, the team Fred Weasley, Ejim, and Isaac Boache. Round of applause for them, please. The 4th breaking team. This is where you say bang bang. Ladies and gentlemen, much as it has been a tight, guys, hello? It has been a tight race to the bottom, but it has also been a very tight race to the top. It is worthy of note that a team that broke 4th broke with a combined speaks of 1,621 and ended with a total team points of 21. So if per your permutations, combinations, and calculations, you cannot get 21, go to bed. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to invite the team. Oh, you know they do bang bang. Right. The team has an L in their name. It doesn't mean they took an L. The team, Lucius Malfoy, Abdul Karim Ibrahim, and JJ Attakpah. Okay. Hey, JJ. Right. So it's a fight.
All those joys, so you pick
guys. So you'll be finding out the rankings for round 5 in the tab. But as you know, this is a very transparent and open CAP. So in room 3, we had for panel A, we had CO first, OO second, OG third, and CG fourth. In panel B, we had CO first as well, but OG second, OO third, and unanimously CG fourth. And then in the room, what was your room? Room 3, room 2. Yes, obviously you came first. On both panels. So that the rest remains to be seen. The final motion, ladies. Oh, sorry. You have to, so the teams, the team breaking first can approach me and indicate to me if they want to pick now. They have the option of skipping the round and letting another team pick before them. After which they can pick. So the team breaking first, the team breaking first can approach me and let me know. Prince, what role are you picking? Or if you want to skip around, let me know. So if you skip, the next in line will pick before you pick. So what do you want to pick? Ladies and gentlemen, the team Hermione Granger have decided to pick the role closing opposition. A round of applause for them.
Faithfulness.
Right. Isaac, what?
See you.
Isaac, what are you picking? Ladies and gentlemen, the team Fred Weasley have decided to pick CG. Erasmus, what do you guys pick? Guys. Right. So the team. We don't need you, please. The team Rubius Hagrid has picked opening opposition. That means by necessary implication, Lucius Malfoy will be opening government. At this point, guys, at this point, let me congratulate all teams for the attempt, but there had to be a final. Some will go, some won't go. It can be on your CV, attempted finalist. Right. The motion for the final round, Taya will read the motion for the final round, and then 15 minutes from now, we will be commencing the debate. Motion.
All right.
Chese indi Ejim no. All right, guys. Motion. This house believes that women who express traits of internal misogyny and show support for patriarchal structures should be regarded as victims instead of perpetrators of patriarchy. Again, this house believes that women who express traits of internal misogyny and show support for patriarchal structures should be regarded as victims instead of perpetrators of patriarchy.
Guys, the word is internalized, not internal. Internalized misogyny.
Yeah, internalized misogyny. Sorry.
So this house believes that women, that's what?
Who express traits of internalized misogyny and show support for patriarchal structures should be regarded as victims instead of perpetrators of patriarchy.
Thank you. The debate starts in 15. Judging the final, myself, Tayo, Kobe, Pinka, Irene, Abena, and Ezekiel. Thank you. One panel.
Finals, do you want 2 panels?
All right, guys. So those on this side, audience, those of you seated, guys, please listen. Ezekiel, those of you seated on this side, all move towards this side. Fill in the slots here. Now, those of you seated here, move and fill in the slots in these 2 lanes. Preferably starting from here. Leave the first 2 pews empty. Hey, you didn't hear me. Those of you here, move here. All of you here, fill the slots here. But don't take the first. So there are a lot of seats here. Come here. Yes. There's a lot of space here. Because the camera, the focusing, that'll be why. And so we can sit here. And then the team sit here. Oh, they can sit here. No, because of the person we are addressing here.
Hello. Hi. On behalf.
Charge my laptop.
Ezekiel, what's your class?
On behalf of somebody who did. What's the password?
And guys, please, the program is being streamed live, so please reduce the noise levels, especially when the debate starts, because we risk a situation of too much interference. So please, at least for the better part of 45 minutes, please shut up. Thank you.
time is over, guys.
So, judges, please line up here. Judges, please line up here. First, the 4 judges sit here. Where are the other teams?
BN items.
Hello?
Erasmus.
So that's why I want our extension to be. That's why I want our extension to be on a.
Hello?
Come down to
Guys, debaters, please. When you want to ask a PO, where are you going? There. Are you not CEO? Yeah. When you want to ask a POI, do not speak into the mic. But when your POI is taken, please ask your POI through the mic. So do not keep saying POI into the mic, please. You can stand and stretch forth your hand so that it doesn't interfere with the. But when your POI is taken, please speak through the microphone so that all of us can hear you, please. And audience, like I said earlier on, at no point should you put on your microphones, please. And please minimize the noise in the room. If you are impressed by the argument, you know what to do. Please snap. No noise.
No, this one is.
Yeah, 2.
Hello? Hello? All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the final round of the Hogwarts Round Robin Invitational. At this juncture, I would like to invite the Prime Minister to open the case for the opening government. Here. Guys, here.
I want you to come in.
We'll wait for more than 2 minutes.
Hello? Is it okay?
Karim.
So, panel, we think Queen Mothers are some of the worst people around. And perhaps they should be renamed as patriarchal princesses because they are the lead advocates of things like gendered norms, FGM in some places, and forces of patriarchy, among other things. But we don't think all of these things are good. And so are many other women who, according to this motion, are people who are enforcing and enhancing patriarchy. But the contention in this debate today is not to answer the question whether these things are good or are bad. The question in this debate is, if you belong to a minority group within a society and you practice the majoritarian culture within that society, does that invalidate your status as a victim within the broader scheme of things in that system or not? We think that we must view the issue in this debate, that is victim and perpetrators, from a very purposive position and not just by way of a verb that we say a doing or an acting word to that extent. If you do something, you are it. If you don't, you are not. We think that we need to view it in a more contextual manner and appreciate the spirit of this in this debate. Also notice that the distinction that we create from opening government is to tell you that this in no way suggests that there cannot be critique of women who do this. We think that critique and challenge are consistent and are very perfect for anybody to do so. You can critique someone who is not a perpetrator of something. You can critique someone who is a victim of something. We can engage the ideas without saying that you are exactly the same as the system that we are fighting. Our argument is that women who do those things are not. First point of substantive matter from opening government. We think we must appreciate a couple of things. That in the society that we live in, there are aspirational things and there are things that merely are for the case of survival. For the lot of women who do this, we think that this is merely a case of survival. Here's why. The world that we live in is entirely a case of being men's world. So leadership, economic power, and almost every other thing that one needs to be able to live a meaningful life are defined by the structures of patriarchy that have been there for time immemorial. And so, if you are a woman and you want to defy that arrangement and be able to do for yourself something that's very good, then it means
Karim.
that you're most likely, by way of survivor, you have to do what the men do. And so we think that it would not be fair, therefore, in describing these issues when you're looking at it from the systemic and institutional point of view, to call those women who merely want to survive people who are perpetrators. They are victims, but they are surviving within their victimhood by approximating to the things that only can use to be able to survive. And we think that is a case that you must appreciate. Second point, I'll come to you very soon, don't worry. Second point along that same angle is that the life that we live in are defined by the times that we are in. And so we are always encouraged to be something that we have seen. So a lot of us want to be most likely what our dads did or what we saw on TV and all of those things. We think that those are the same things that define some of these women in that particular instance. And so if we live in a culture that education taught you that during career day, if you are a woman, you must be a nurse. If you are a man, you must be a doctor. That means that that person most likely is going to be like that. If the person turns out eventually and wants to do all those things that they have learned, we don't think that if we agree that patriarchy is bad, we must describe that person who is merely an embodiment of the system that coerces them, trains them, and socializes them to reflect those things to be the same case. We don't think that to the extent that one woman, for instance, believes that altogether patriarchy is something that is bad, but because they must survive, but because they must aspire to be and appreciate some of the things that are enjoyed in society, they must now be regarded something else because they are not. Because when we do that, we blur the lines, we help men more. Prince, let's go.
Do you think that men live outside the same social structures that you describe? And if so, how do we exactly describe them, perpetrators or victims?
Well, we don't think that men live from a different system. And that's exactly the next point. So what happens to men? Because men are also a product of the system. So to an extent, one can say they are victims. Nice logic. But the systemic fights that we all appreciate, because there's a consensus here that patriarchy is bad. But overriding beneficiaries of patriarchy are the institution that allows men, for instance, to flourish. Which means that the most average of men are likely to benefit more from the best of women in the system that we are in. And so, if we are fighting a problem and we must find an object that we will fight against and use those objects who control the systems that exist today to change everything, then the point is true that in that particular instance, even if the case is that two men are going to fall casualty, we think that it is better to focus on men. It is the same principle that underpins men are trash. It is not to say that statistically all men are trash, but the point is that the vast majority of people who are an embodiment of the system and benefit are men. To that extent, if that is true, then the point is that we need to find somebody. Because in this debate, nobody must argue that nobody then can be perpetrators of patriarchy. Because if these guys go and argue that in their world, all men are
Karim.
also victims, what they are basically saying in this debate is that this debate is not debatable. The reason why this debate is debatable is that we must do it contextually and appreciate within the greater scheme of things how things happen. There's a reason why the average mate or truck conductor in Ghana here with no education, very shabbily dressed, smelling and stinking, can still have the effrontery to look at the most gorgeous, the most intelligent and amazing woman and tell them trash. It is because of the power that are placed here. That tells you very clearly that if then you want to address the problem of patriarchy, you must view it within this context. Not to say that we can't even find some men like Tempo, who is obviously not here, or Kobe, to be very good people or want to be feminists and all of that. Those things also exist. But the point must be viewed within that context, and we think that is very, very important. But before I sit down, here is one reason again why this focus should not be on the men, and we cannot classify the men here as victims just the same way we are doing for the women. Because if we agree with all the analysis that I've made, that overwhelmingly men benefit, then we must not blur the lines in terms of how we fight it. Because when we do that and consider these women also as perpetrators, what we are basically doing is that we are drawing parallels with them and the men. When violence or something bad is happening in society, and you need to address that particular problem, we don't think that if you have the opportunity, you must lend your voice to any argument that would ultimately make it very, very difficult to address the entirety of the problem. This debate is not about ideological purity, where we want an entire case of all women being this, all men being that. The point is, if we weigh the balance of the issues that happen in respect of patriarchy, and we want to address patriarchy, who should the focus be? Should it be men or women? And if you consider somebody as victim or perpetrator, how does that inform the fight against patriarchy? We think that in our world, we do patriarchy a great disservice when we see the people clearly for who they are. Women who do this are not. They're surviving. They're aspiring to do everything that we have taught them, proudly opening governments.
Here. Debaters, quick one. I said when you want to ask a POI, just stand, but do not talk through the microphone, because you risk distracting the recording. So please, if you have a POI, stand. But once the POI is taken, you can put on your mic and ask the question, because that way the other person is not speaking. Thank you. At this juncture, I would like to invite the leader of the opposition, to start off the case of opening opposition. Here.
So, panel, there is a general idea that patriarchy is ascribed to a particular gender. And that's the bullshit about everything that Karim says. Because if it's a woman, we shouldn't view it in the light of patriarchy and all the harms that it comes with. But if it's a man, then we should ascribe it to be bad, treat them as perpetrators and all those things. We think that's the problem with feminism, and that's the reason why we are still where we are. And if that should be the line to toe, we would never succeed. And so he says that women are being patriarchal in that light because they want to survive. False. Because even men who are also patriarchal is because they want to survive. So if survival is a good excuse, then let's not persecute men because they are patriarchal, because they are also seeking their metric of survival. But then secondly, he says, like, because they are being oppressed, their oppression is legitimate. But then that comes with the idea that if I'm being oppressed, it legitimizes me oppressing another person. And that's the kind of logic he runs with. And we think that's very, very bad, because you only create a vicious cycle of oppression where you never solve the problem. And that's something that nobody should buy in today's debate. But then things that will bring to you from opening opposition. First thing, who is a patriarch and what patriarchy entails? Patriarchy is not the perpetrator, or is not based on the gender of the person who performs the act. It's based on one, the action, and then the impact or the outcomes of that particular action. So if feminists say we are against patriarchy, it should not be based on the actor, but it should be based on the action and the outcomes of that particular action. Insofar as they concede that the actions and their outcomes are just the same as when a man performs those actions, we think we should see them as perpetrators, put that bad spotlight on them, and fight them like we fight any other man performing that particular action. But then the funny thing is that he tries to argue as if it's a woman, it will have like very minimal consequences on women. That's false, because it's causing the same havoc, the same oppression, and the same harms that women are facing when men perpetuate those same actions. That's the reason why you can't draw a line and you can't create distinctions between who is a perpetrator just because the gender is different. But then why they are not victims before that, BNI?
Do you believe that an individual who acts out of like compulsion, right, is culpable for a thing?
Exactly. We think that person is culpable, and I'll justify that. Because when you try to say, like, agreed, those women or those queen mothers or whoever don't owe an obligation to their fellow women. But as feminists, we owe an obligation to counter whatever is patriarch, irrespective of the source, whether you are being coerced or whatever. And so once that thing has the same effect, or antagonizes us, or hurts us as a patriarchal act, the response must be the same, irrespective of the gender or the source of that particular action. And so why they are not victims, but rather perpetrators? Because these people are beneficiaries of the oppression that women are facing. And so they have power. They are able to manipulate their way through things. But then these people are people who should have used that power to be able to fight for women. But what do? They only continuously use that power to propagate the traditions and narratives that much more oppress women. We think they deserve that tag because they are beneficiaries of whatever that is going on. But then secondly, when you treat them as victims, what it does is that it minimizes, like, you create a narrative that minimizes the effects of their actions. But then secondly, you are much more likely to neglect their actions. I'll analyze why that is very problematic, especially when you don't have different consequences just because it's a woman that does it. BNI again.
What do you think about cultural crimes?
Erasmus will come and deal with that. So let's move on. But then the continuous existence of patriarchy that exists in their world. Because what you have is that if a man says women are trash, the man is bad, the man is evil, and the man is tagged as a perpetrator. If a woman says the same thing, even though the action is bad, the outcomes are bad, the woman is a victim. Why do you do this? Why is this bad? Because feminism says that gender should never be the basis of any action. But in that particular spotlight, you use gender as a basis for your action and your decision making. Why this is problematic is because you legitimize every single action that patriarchs take based on their gender analysis, and that means that you lose and it's ideologically inconsistent. But then secondly, the consequences of their action. You continue attacking men and leaving the real betrayers of the gender group, which are the women who are turning around to oppress us. But then secondly, you endorse internal betrayal and normalize internal betrayal, because when a woman betrays the feminist group, you say that person was a victim, and so you normalize it and you don't really deal with it. But the third thing, they are becoming the gatekeepers or the new face of patriarchy, because now patriarchs know that if a man does that same action, the backlash is more, but if a woman does it, the backlash is less. They are becoming the new face of patriarchy. What you do is that you only legitimize that face and allow that face to stay. But then, much more importantly, assuming they are truly victims, in this particular instance, what you do is that you give men more reason to victimize them to become the face of patriarchy, because they know you only treat them as you only treat their actions as actions of victims. Why that is bad is that you only push more women into that victim status, because men will now ride on the response feminist groups give to coerce them to become their face and their actions and their gatekeepers. We think that is much more problematic. You only cause more victimization, you don't solve the problem. Karim.
Okay. So, victim who doesn't deny societal action towards a problem. Poor mothers can be punished for child labor, but that does not also mean that they are not victims of economic inequality.
The problem here is that once you tag it as victim, the intensity of the response reduces. And that's the problem. Because when the intensity of the response reduces, the aggression that feminism needs to attack these things are less and they have no utility. But then third thing, the best way to change is to treat them as bad and put it in the negative light. What that means is that you deter other women from betraying the group. But then secondly, women who are in those positions, if it means proving loyalty to the feminist group, will even pull out of those beneficiaries and fight the feminist cause. If that is what we want, that is what we want to get. But then lastly, what we do in our world is that we make sure that we prove that everything patriarchal is what we are against, not who causes the patriarchal act. And that is the kind of world that Karim wants us to live in. A world where who causes the patriarchal act determines the tag, not the action and its consequences. Proudly opening opposition.
I would like to thank the leader of the opposition for that speech and welcome the Deputy Prime Minister for his speech. Here.
Panel, can I say this is my third Hogwarts final? From OG. So panel, a bulk of my issue is going to be on how we can advance the fight of patriarchy. Whether this can be done by focusing on the system itself and those who benefit the more on the system, or we should attack a certain small group of people who, even if they benefit, only enjoy fringe benefits. That is what OO's case is. I'm going to do a lot of analysis on that. But before then, the idea of men are trash or men are patriarchs is premised on the fact that it may not be all men who are trash or all men who are patriarchs, but a larger majority of that sect or that section or that demography enjoy the benefits of those actions. The reason this argument is important in today's debate is when you lend the logic of this argument to CO, what they are going to say is once you can characterize a group of women as patriarchs, then by extension, that norm that we say men are trash, even though not all men are trash, you can now say women are patriarchs. The analysis on this is going to come on the consequence of the fight against patriarchy, and that's important from OG's speech. So before that, let us engage Andrews. So Andrew says that, well, patriarchy is judged on the action and not the outcome. This is a class 1 rebuttal. Not every kill is described as murder, because once you kill somebody as an act of self-defense for your survival, like Karim has already told you, and that many times the reason why these women endorse these things is because, one, it has been internalized, which means that societal fabric has made it so and has made it okay. But secondly, they need to survive within that system, and in a matter of survival within that system, it is an act of self-defense. So even though the intent, the action may be wrong, the intent must matter, because once it's an act of survival, you cannot tag that person as a perpetrator, because the person is always only engaging in that act as a matter of survival, and not because they want to enjoy any great benefit like a patriarch like B&I would enjoy. But secondly, he says that there exists a likelihood of ignoring that particular action, and that can generate to a bigger component. But the response is this: the tagging of such a person as a perpetrator will mean a lot of things on the fight against patriarchy. Because now, one, he says that women have now become poster boys for patriarchy. And that is exactly what my point is in today's debate. The minute you start attacking women and you fail to attack the system, now you would say women are now poster boys for patriarchy. But in fact, these people are the ones who are suffering at the hand of this big a system. What you need to do is launch an assault on that system, and that system alone, not anybody who enjoys any free benefits. But more importantly, let's go to what I said I was going to do. Who we should engage. Whether we should engage people who enjoy these fringe benefits, or we should engage the larger society or the larger system, which is patriarchy and everything they want.
Okay, so
Closing first.
So how do you differentiate between the system and a woman who trains her daughter that no matter how much domestic violence she faces, she should keep quiet and stay in her marriage? How is the system different from such a woman?
Good, because in that particular situation, that young woman who is going to stay inside that abusive marriage does not enjoy any benefits. So you cannot say such a person is now a perpetrator or whatever it is, because that person is now losing out. The difference is this: that when you want to tag somebody as a perpetrator, they must be the group or the demography that has the largest benefit. So for somebody who is going to stay in an abusive marriage and suffer all the cuts and all the bends, etc., how does that person benefit from such a system? You cannot tag that person as a perpetrator. The person is only being in that situation because they want to survive the world in which we live in. But moving on how, like, when women are tagged as perpetrators and instead of victims, what happens to the larger system? The first thing is this: women, like how it affects women in general and the fight against patriarchy. The first thing you do is you create a crack in the fight against patriarchy, like a concession that like Erasmus is going to make in today's debate. That in that fight against patriarchy, women or people who are supposed to be fighting the bigger system of patriarchy will now refocus that fight on those who have internalized that system, because of the argument that first you have to make sure your house is in order before you go out there. So instead of fighting a bigger system of patriarchy, now people who are supposed to be fighting that bigger system will now be pitched like against each other, and that is a big problem for patriarchy. Why is that important? Because at every point in time, when you want to create an assault on a system, it must be with a united front. You can never win any war with a divided front. But secondly, what you do is you also delay the win against patriarchy, because crusaders will now be hinging their attacks on fringe women, people who just benefit from the system because they want to survive. The focus of this debate is to help those who are in that system, alleviate the kind of patriarchy that is enforced down their throats. Also recognize that the motion says this misogyny is internalized. It's by no doing of theirs. They've been coerced to live in such a system for so long. So whichever action they are taking, they're not taking because they want to be patriarchs, but they want to survive. Also, consent is key in today's debate. But moving on men, and how the fight is going to be diverted from patriarchy and like everybody who benefits from patriarchy, like us against women. So what this is going to do is this: we now give men an excuse to stop fighting patriarchy. So now what men are going to do is they're going to be fighting women, because the idea is now is that women are the poster boys of patriarchy. So now the fight will now be shifted from making sure that you do not unduly benefit from you having a dick between your legs, but then you are fighting anybody and anyone at all who says that men are good or men are better than women, or a man should be given a better position because or due to his gender. The problem with this particular thinking is this: so now what happens generally for the fight against patriarchy is this: men will now be discouraged to fight patriarchy on their own, because even though they are the largest beneficiaries of patriarchy, obviously they want a fight where they continue to enjoy all those huge benefits, as opposed to a fight where they lose all those benefits and engage with the women. So now what it's going to do is that they're going to be fighting those who enjoy the fringe benefits and leave the fight against those who enjoy the most benefits. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's debate, we We need to focus on the team that helps the win of patriarchy. Whether it is by largely engaging those who benefit the most, or those who benefit little. In today's debate, like primarily, what we've done to you is to prove how it affects everybody. But lastly, how it affects the so-called victims that these people are going to talk about. So what it does is that they now become a target groups for crusaders. So now these women are now a target group for crusaders. Instead of fighting patriarchy head on, they now become a target group for crusaders. They are now victimized, they are now demonized, and every other thing that comes with that tag. In today's debate, you need to look at every single issue. But more importantly, the question you should answer is this: which team presents the best possible case? Is it OG? The response is a hell yes. But more importantly, the focus must not be distracted. We must always engage the system and the system alone. Never because anybody or individual who has good intent or whatsoever, because the system is our enemy. We must break it down. Here.
I'd like to thank the Deputy Prime Minister for that speech and welcome the Deputy Leader of Opposition to conclude the opening half of today's debate. Here.
Hello, can you hear me clearly? Okay. There are fundamental problems with OG's case. First of all, I'm going to do two things, right? I'm going to state two extensions I'm going to talk about, which is the hidden problem of women who are patriarchs, that is attacking the whole patriarchal front, and the fact that we've not paid attention to women who are patriarchs and how this will help deal with it as a better model in eradicating that problem. Then number two, I'll tell you why this is worse off for all women. But this is why OG would continue being fought. First of all, they use crime as an illustrator. I'll use crime as an illustrator. Criminals are victims of society, especially criminals from minority groups like blacks. They are all victims of the way society is socialized, and we are very, very sorry for them. But what we don't do is to tell them that, well, you are not criminals, you are victims, come and receive a pat on the back. Or being consistent like what Karim is saying, well, you are not criminals, you are victims, we are going to punish you. What we do is to punish them, but then also deal with the very system that ensures that criminals are being chained on day in, day out. This is never a way for this to go. But if Karim had taken my POI, this was what I was going to ask him. And especially for him, is Israel legitimate in using anti-Semitism to oppress other Palestinians just because of his unique situation in the Middle East? Is it right for them to be able to set up borders within Palestine? And I'll let his own ideology be a rebuttal to him. But then number two, he says the organization of society as a survival metric, right? And that men are the ones who benefit more. Like men are trash is not something up for grabs in this debate because it is a trend to spark up the discussion. If you have any relevant discussion with any feminist, that will be the first thing they would admit to you, that in as much as patriarchy is pervasive, not men are trash. That has an impact in a kind of analysis I'll show you in how it dissuades a lot of allies, especially men, who are very important for the movement because of the kind of capital that they already have within those societies, which we can bank on and use for as our own. But then secondly, men are not the winners in this situation. Patriarchy is bad, and it's bad for both men and women. The high suicidal rates, the long work hours that men have to endure, men are not the ultimate winners in any patriarchal world. Don't let OG deceive you with that mentality. Both men and women suffer, and if they say because they suffer it is right for them, then men also have a justification for being patriarchal once they are able to say that it ensures that they would survive. I'm coming. And you took 3, so sit down. Women should be defined, what this guy says, that women should be defined by their group. First of all, the idea that class 1 analysis that is ideologically inconsistent is for our side. Because what you say is that
a patriarchy or any ideology does not matter, matters about your gender. What that means is that men have an obligation to be patriarchs and women have an obligation to be feminists. That's implicitly what you tell society. Secondly, you cannot then distinguish, sit down. You cannot then distinguish between women who are just carriers of patriarchy who have not internalized it and may change versus all these people who have had that kind of power. It means that when you see a woman being a patriarch, you do not really know if this is one who has internalized it and is a patriarch or one who is just acting based on ignorance or whatsoever. Why is that very dangerous? I don't like your extension. Sit down. How is that very dangerous for the feminist movement? Because it gives a voice for a large majority of women to other women whom we can't ascertain their thoughts. It means that you label women as a speaker for every other woman within society, and that is very dangerous because most of these queen mothers which Karim talk about are not people who come and say that women are bad or women should be oppressed or whatever that it is. What they are going to say is that it is better for women, that this is our world, that women should buy into this. What then happens is that because of their large influence which they have, they're able to co-opt more women into that front, and we think that in itself is bad. It means they don't just act as patriarchs, they win more followers for themselves, and we think that in itself is bad. And especially in the light of multilaterality of voices, we need to be able to tag these voices. So what they say is that we should not label, because that's explicitly what Karim says. It means when we don't label, then any woman who speaks for all women, and that is what the patriarchy is going to band on. But then secondly, especially for patriarchs, that becomes a new front for them to focus on, because they'll realize that all men are being attacked. Therefore, the best way for them to be able to keep the gates of patriarchy is to give more women certain powers within those societies, right? And still exert a level of control over them and still use them to perpetuate patriarchy. This is something that we don't think will take. And after this, I don't think OG should be placing anything in this debate. But then two things which I've already analyzed, a lot of problems which come as a result for women. But then these are also other things which happen. We lose the legitimacy to fight for other women when we ally with them or we decide to treat them as victims. Because how do you reconcile treating rape victims or rescuing rape victims with supporting someone who is also a rape apologist or says that it's okay for women to be raped? We don't think that the feminist movement is large enough to be able to contain that kind of shifts within those ideologies. We think that they will be branded for just that one kind of thing that they do. And especially because these people hold issues of power and small issues like rape and FGM are things which happen in the normal day society. They will be defined by their support for these women, and we think that is inherently dangerous. That deals with the argument of cultural sins, which he says, and it also is also an extension that JJ brings by saying that, well, sometimes we say murder is manslaughter. What happens is we don't say that they are victims or let's treat them in that way. We still tag them as criminals. What we then say is that there's an excuse to maybe change the approach in which maybe we punish them, maybe in another way or whatever that it is, and that's even in a worst case of scenarios. But what we do is to still tag them and label them as patriarchs, right, in order for us to be able to deal with them. Problem is we can't see patriarchy. We can only see it through its symbolism and expression. Any idea that gives a symbol to people to continue to oppress other women is one that is bad. But then lastly, we need to be able to co-opt our allies, men, as I've already said. But then secondly, we need to be able to distinguish them, because we cannot continue to have tensions within us. But why is treating them as victims worse off for women, especially that process? In the event that we are even likely to concede with everything that they say, why should we still treat them as perpetrators? Because this process is slow. It's very, very slow. It is, and number two, it is easier to deny them of that power and expression by isolating them on their own. We don't think you do that as victims. You bring them in for them to express themselves. And we think that differentiation is very important. But then it also gives a leeway for patriarchy. Like, even if we concede to everything that you say, the process of treating them as victims is one that is pernicious for the feminist movement. It's slow and will continue to keep women under oppression. We are for women, and don't buy into these apologies, these patriarchal apologist notions. They are leaking all over. Thank you.
Right, we'd like to thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for concluding today's opening half of the debate. We would invite the Member of Government to start out the closing half of the debate. Here.
The panel, ladies and gentlemen, the reason for feminism's failure to achieve universal subscription in over 90 years is its mistaken posture that some group, men, oppress another group, women. Our extension from closing government would show the pathogenesis of socially malignant ideas and why we are all victims. We would be showing also why, at the end of the day, this complex understanding is the only argument that is necessary to solving the problem. And the problem at the end of the day is patriarchy. It's neither men nor women. This unnecessary conflict between the genders has failed to utilize any solvency for 90 years. Let us tell you, first of all, the nature of problems. Because look, at the end of the day, the debate that has been had so far is that opening government believes that men, primarily, are the beneficiaries of patriarchy, so they are perpetrators. Women, even sometimes when they are instruments of patriarchy, are not. On our bench, they all believe that, perpetration is something that is symmetrically distributed. So as a man, you can be a perpetrator. As a woman, you can be a perpetrator. It simply is a matter of your actions. We believe that neither sex are perpetrators, and this complex sociological understanding of patriarchy and the difference between types of problems would show that. And this is ultimately key to finding solvency in solving the problem of patriarchy. And that's what we believe this debate ultimately seeks to achieve. Because we are not just labeling people for fun, we are labeling them ultimately because we are trying to get traction in finding where the source or the animus of the problem is and how to solve the problem. So solvency would be key in this debate. Sit down. Let's understand first of all the types of problems. Let us recognize that there are basically two types of problems. There are simple causality problems. Problems where, let's say I push a ball down a hill and it rolls down. The causal agent is very easy to identify. The human who is pushing down the ball caused the problem. But there are certain complex sociologically malignant ideas that don't have simple causality. For example, climate change, right? China pollutes, but its pollution is fueled by our excessive consumption. Who is the perpetrator there of climate change? Who is the victim of climate change? The countries in the developing world, for example, who do not have as much industrialization but burn down their forests necessary for the preservation of the environment, are they perpetrators or are they victims? Socially malignant ideas have complex causality, have complex interplay of victims and so-called instruments of the perpetration of those socially malignant ideas. And that is why at the end of the day, you cannot exist in opposition's world where you have a simple causality mechanism for identifying, who's the bad guy and who's the good guy. All of these guys are wrong in that simple-mindedness. Let us understand our extensions. One, let's understand the origin of these socially malignant ideas. In this debate, patriarchy is an interplay of factors, biological, historical, and cultural. Men did not sit down and have a conference one day and say, hey, here is a set of rules by which we are going to oppress women. This is not the truth of, patriarchy. It is sit down, guys. It is an anthropological fact that patriarchy resulted from a lot of our biological, superiority, which today has emanated in a world where, historically, might was right. Men could oppress, another group. And then eventually the agrarian revolution led to a situation where women had to be domesticated and become baby factories because we needed more bodies in order to plow our land. This sociological analysis is very key. Men did not have an intent initially to create a coercive system. It came about due to biological necessity. Now let us talk about why men are also victims, because I think they already pointed some of these things like high suicide rates and the fact that men push themselves through all of these problematic loopholes to achieve status in a patriarchally defined manner. Look, at the end of the day, they recognize that men themselves, due to the performative aspects or expectations of patriarchy, are victims. They recognize that women, obviously, due to the asymmetric benefits they get from the patriarchal system, are obviously victims. So why then can they not grasp the simple idea of this complex causality and therefore the failure of reductionism into perpetrators and victimhood in this debate? That is what they need to engage. So let's talk about how we get solvency. Because look, we need nomenclature, not because we just want to bandy about labels. Feminists are not calling you perps or victims or whatnot because they like the labels. At the end of the day, we need nomenclature for three reasons. One, for correct problem identification, to know where exactly the problem is coming from. That is, if there's a perpetrator, and a victim, how we can interfere in that dynamic and solve the problem. As I've shown, there is no perpetrator or victim. It's a complex interplay of both things due to sociological factors. Secondly, we need identification because we need to galvanize action against the agents of a problem. We have failed for 90 years to galvanize action because half of the population, which are men, have been deemed historically historically by first and second wave feminists as the problem, and at least more nuanced definitions of feminism are beginning to see a complex, as OO tries to show, a complex understanding, but that understanding is still flawed because it fails to recognize at the end of the day that even men who benefit disproportionately from patriarchy are themselves still victim to the performative expectations of that patriarchy, and are themselves at the end of the day merely instruments, not perpetrators. That lack of nuanced understanding is the reason why at the end of the day all versions of feminism have failed to solve a problem for over 90 years. Opening.
Okay. So it is not mutually exclusive to view them as perpetrators, especially because there are people who also choose to be patriarchs, but then also deal with the societal implication and problems that come with it. Those two processes can still happen, but victimization is bad.
My POI earlier showed how it is ridiculous for you to expect, for example, and OG already showed us, that an individual indoctrinated into a system, raised by patriarchal mothers perhaps as a man, or raised as a woman in a patriarchal system which she has no choice but to conform to in order for her to survive. It is ridiculous for you to say that individual, whether male or female, is themselves someone who is like some mastermind, fully conscious of their actions, fully rational, but that individual is ultimately a victim of the inculcation and socialization and the coercive pressures of performative expectation. At the end of the day, you cannot call that individual a perpetrator. That person is a victim. Even if they reap disproportionately the benefits of the system, they are a victim, right? Because they cannot opt out of that system. They are coerced by that system. And my dynamic has already explained this. Look, solvency is achieved when we do two things. One, we destroy the flawed barrier between both victim groups. We create a global coalition of men and women, whether they are called meninists or feminists or egalitarians, whatever nonsense you want to call them, who recognize at the end of the day that the problem is systemic and must be taken apart. Just like you cannot solve climate change by blaming China and expect only them to solve industrialization, or blaming America for consumerism. At the end of the day, nuance wins this debate. It is not simplistic blaming of men. It is not a more nuanced blaming of men and women, but failure to understand the anthropological basis of this problem. It is the nuanced understanding of the pathogenesis of the problem that gives you solvency. We have been very proud to be closing government.
Right. We would like to thank the pathogenic member of government. We'll invite the increasingly malignant member of opposition for her speech. Here.
Opening government is still the more relevant team on government bench because closing government runs a very suicidal case, and I'm going to show you why we cannot and ever create change when we label everybody a victim. So that's actually my extension. So when he started and Bachi was doing his antics, calm your tits. So, look, when you want to make a fat person change, and remember this analogy throughout my speech, when you want to make a fat person lose weight because he's on the verge of dying, it is a difference. If you could use surgery to remove all the fat to make him lose all the weight, you don't have to prescribe to him or tell him, oh, are you a victim or a perpetrator? When you tell him that you are a victim of your complex biological and social underpinnings, and that is why you are fat, it makes it very difficult for him to change. Why? Because reducing weight comes from an internal resolution. The kind of change that we need from feminism doesn't come from the outside, and it comes from an internal resolution to change, whether you are benefiting or suffering from it. And because of that internal resolution to change, the moment you label people victims, it becomes very hard. That is why these guys will lose this debate, closing government. Now, what has gone on in this debate? Opening government has said that this is a system. Now, because it's a system, we must fight the system and leave women out of it. That is why JJ was not able to answer my POI, because I asked, if a woman tells her daughter who is in marriage that no matter what the abuse you face in marriage, stay there, is that woman a system, or that woman is a woman and then there's some system sitting somewhere? When you understand Ejim's case, which is the only truth in this case, that everything is a complex underpinning of social interactions, then that woman is part of the system. Now, the reason why feminism has failed is not because of the things Ejim describes, but because of a lack of nuance. What they say most of the time is a man is bad, a woman is okay, if no matter what she does. We think that lack of nuance is exactly what is happening on government side today. What are we bringing to you from closing opposition? What we are saying from closing opposition is every woman who exhibits it. So we are not saying all women. The same way, if a man has tried to change, you still can't call him a patriarch. Is that every woman who exhibits it and then the nuance, we can single out that woman and call her a patriarch and a perpetrator of patriarchy. And I'm going to give you how we do this. So, the first thing is on capacity, on agency. So, are these women able and capable of not doing the patriarchy, and they still do it? Something that opening government would like you to believe. So, how does somebody get agency to become a non-patriarch? Two things: the capacity to make independent decisions, and the second thing is the capacity to exist outside of the structure. So, can women make independent decision and come to a resolution that patriarchy is bad and I want to exist out of it? We say yes. More often than not, women do not get the same education as men and the same exposure as men and all of that. But for a woman who comes into contact with the arguments that feminism poses, is that woman logically and cognitively has the cognitive capacity to make the decision to opt out of it? We say yes. We think that is the basic underpinning of feminism that says that the cognitive capacities of men and women are no different. So we believe that the same, if you want to make the argument that, oh, some women don't know about this thing and therefore they can't exist out of it, that's the same thing. Some men also don't know. But we are talking about people who know and choose to stay within those things. Those people are perpetrators because they have the cognitive capacity to opt out. They choose not to opt out. The second thing is the capacity to exist outside of it. What's opening government will have you believe? And that's why opening government is the more relevant team, because they're the ones who spoke to the issues. What opening government will have you believe is that, well, women don't have the capacity to opt out because they usually have to kowtow to these systems to survive. The truth is that exists on a spectrum. There are women like Moesha who can obviously live on what they can do, like what they can earn outside of having to sleep with men or whatever she described on CNN, but still choose to do it. We don't think that counts as duress. So when Cardi B says, I used to drag men and rob them because I had to live that life, we think that that is an insult to every single minimum wage person who lives on minimum wage, because what she's telling them is that I can't live like you. I have to rob to do these things. We think there's a spectrum and a large majority of women can really exist outside the structures of patriarchy. But even for those who can't, we say that it is very important for them to make that sacrifice, because when we say they should see themselves as victims, what we then say is for every poor man who also has to rely on treating his wife harshly to be able to gain whatever he needs to gain to survive as a very poor man, then that man is also justified. And I'm going to come to why victimhood is not important. Let your guy bring it. I don't have time for you. So, how exactly do we create change? Now, my analogy about the fat person comes in. So, David will have you believe that, you see, we don't just label for labeling's sake. We label because we want to create change. So, how do we create change? Right? What he says is that we have to identify the problem correctly. We say that even in the current dispensation of people saying men are the problem, we think that this analysis that he still makes is still evident in the public discourse. So even when people say men are the problem, they still understand that these men come from societies and these discussions still go on and those things are not mutually exclusive. But the second thing is, even with all the flaws that he mentions, patriarchy has kept an increasing foothold or a stronghold in people's lives, which means that it is obviously working by attacking people. What these guys will have you believe is that we need not to have this aggressive stance towards people. We need to treat all of them as victims, and that is what's going to change them, because when you tell the person he's a victim, then the person will say, okay, I'm a victim, so then let me change, right? We think you can't force patriarchy down the throat, you can't force feminism down the throats of people, one. The second thing is you can't beat people into thinking women are equal to them. All you can do is to make a conscious argument to their consciences. Now, that means that to solve patriarchy, anybody at all who has become a feminist, whether man or woman, had to come to a realization that this is bad and I have to make a personal effort, regardless of whether I still want to pay for dates or regardless of whether I want to not open car doors to make that change. That means that it has to be an individual resolution. Now, when you say somebody is a perpetrator, what you then say is that you are a bad person and you don't need to do this, but you are doing it for your benefit and therefore you need to change. That speaks more to the conscience of people than when you say you are a victim. When you say you are a victim to everybody, what they say is that it gives them a reason to tell their consciences that they are not bad people and they are just victims of what is going on, and they are more likely to stay within it. So given that in this debate we all want to create solvency, in this debate we are not all about just labeling for fun, and we didn't obviously, like these guys say, oh, for the women it's not their fault, it's internalized, as opposed to men who paid school fees and house dues to learn patriarchy. We think that we are just doing it to create change, and when we want to create change, we want to give people the best motivation to tell themselves to create change. We think we don't get that when we tell them they are victims and therefore they can keep eating whatever they want to eat like fat people. We want to give them a reason to hate themselves and change, and that is the only way. Proudly of closing opposition.
Right, we'd like to thank the member of the opposition for that speech and introduce the government whip for the concluding side of government's debate. Here.
Forgive me, just a few minutes. Are you ready? Can everybody hear me? Yeah, sure. So, panel, the problem with the feminist movement has never been about not saying the right things. It's about nobody hearing them. In this debate, the kind of women we are talking about are in very conservative societies most of the time. And even when they are in liberal countries, they are like Christian evangelicals, etc. The kind of internalized misogyny we are talking about is the patriarchy that even feminists, some of the feminists today, keep on unlearning, because these ideas are so ingrained in the kind of societal upbringing that they have. But secondly, the support for the patriarchal structures is not simply because they know this structure is oppressive to women and we support it, but it is because these patriarchal structures in themselves have perks that these women are attractive to them and they benefit from. So, for example, the kind of economic benefits that women who give birth to a lot of kids get in conservative communities, the kind of power prestige that the queen mothers that OO likes to talk about get in these communities. Because of these things, it means there is a different way of looking at it when it comes to solving the problem. But secondly, because there was no response to Ejim's nuanced analysis of showing why feminism has failed to be able to really bring solvency to the problems of women, it shows you that we need to have a rethink of the approach of feminism, and especially radical feminism. But let me talk about victimhood and why that is important in this debate. When do we recognize a group or tag a group as victims? OG analyzes to you that because of their societal makeup, obviously, they have no choice but to choose this. That is why OO's response to it was very good, because then they are all doing it for survival. What is the more nuanced analysis Ejim brought to you? Because of the sociological struggle for power, because beings in themselves always want to struggle for dominance, through that and communal mob mentality, people have been able to live in a system that makes them oppress others. But in this instance, because they have had no alternative viewpoints in the vast number of instances, so for example, Hutu children grew up thinking Tutsis were the problems to their lifestyles. What is the kind of solution that we bring to this? In instances where a large number of group of people living within a system, and because after solvency, they still have to live together, because that's the kind of world that these guys do not engage. That is in a world where we are able to deal with patriarchy. We still want to see a world where men and women are able to live side by side, and after
after calling them perpetrators. That is why you need to be able to have a common tag that unites them all to work towards a common cause. So let's use 2 case studies, Hutus and Tutsis, and then the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and then climate change and global effort towards it. So when there is a problem that is socially accepted, that everybody is suffering from, and it's not easy to pinpoint a perpetrator because everybody is oppressed by a suppressive a system. In such instance, we always use methods that lets everybody see that it was not their fault. What happens in this world? It gets people to interact with the kind of wrongs that they did in this world, but still know that they were victims of a system that they had no control over. So, for example, the Hutus and Tutsi situation, we did not jail all the Tutsis because simply they were killing Hutus. We did not jail the Hutus because they were killing Tutsis. They formed Truth and Reconciliation Committee. Come and confess and go your way. Why? Because today Rwandans are living together, not recognizing themselves as Hutus and Tutsis, because there was nobody that was considered to be a perpetrator in resolving such a conflict. Climate change, global effort. They didn't say that, well, the biggest enforcers of climate change are the ones we are going to punish. Everybody came together, and as much as you can contribute to dealing with the problem, because one, even beyond us calling victims, there are consequences that we all face. Even men in this instance, patriarchy, even women in this instance of patriarchy, there are consequences we all face, and everybody must make an effort to deal with it. Because of this socially malignant problem, and it affects everybody, everybody who views themselves as a victim would now want to contribute more to the effort. But secondly, the problem with victim blaming is that you always, there's less accountability, and so that is why their point on agency doesn't make sense, because they believe that people have the capacity to make independent decisions, but that is not the case. Why? Because when you live, especially in these kind of conservative societies, you live under a societal duress. But secondly, there are things that people have done in the past that are a result of their culture. But thirdly, the kind of things that people do as a result of patriarchy are not necessarily criminal things. So once you pay above the minimum wage, whether you are paying a woman more or a man more, it is still not criminal. And so it is about changing mindset. And how do we do that? Through Ejim's extension. So, stop calling me a preacher. It's very insulting. Stop. Second, so now let's talk about these issues. The thing about these guys is that there's more silencing of women on their side. These kind of women we are talking about, because already the misogyny is internalized. So these guys say, especially Erasmus, that you are going to silence them. Why is this a problem? When you silence them, they still hold on to the power. They still have the following. They still have the influence. That means that these views are still things that through their lifestyles are things that influence a lot of their women under their care. The problem with radical feminism and its failure to interact with the conservative society that they want to change is that they cannot get access to these areas. Why is this very important in this debate? Because the reason these women exist as victims is because, one, they are unwilling to engage with a system that consistently calls themselves perpetrators. Classic example. That is why men and even some women in this auditorium feel uncomfortable even being called a feminist, because of how feminism has become so combative. When an ideology seems so combative, it's very difficult for you to relate to it, because one, people don't want to be called criminals when they can just concede that they are victims of an oppressive system and work to become better. But secondly, the problem with Prince's analogy of a fat person is that firstly, we must concede that there are things that even a fat person, no matter what he does, cannot deal with cannot just suddenly become slim. And that is something they force every woman into one particular box to fit into the kind of idea of feminism that they have. We think that in our world, we are able to recognize a huge societal problem and get everybody to deal with it, rather than calling everybody a perpetrator. Because victimhood, through fighting for slaves, through fighting for black lives and black rights in the US, through fighting for civil rights, etc. Martin Luther King, by not using violence, by using an approach that gets people to buy into your message, is one that works. Always, when you pose yourself as a victim, you get more buy-in, you get more redress, because centuries get to love your kids. Panel, the problem with feminists, once again, is not that they are saying the right things, is that nobody is listening. In our world, men, women, everybody listening, proudly closing government.
Yeah. We thank the government whip for concluding the side of government today, and welcome the opposition whip to conclude today's debate. Here.
When Presec did that, we saw what happened. The problem with closing government in today's debate is they want individuals to reduce the extent of the responsibility that they have. And the thing that Aborasa tells you is that when individuals feel like they have a reduced role to play in solving or curbing the menace that exists in society, those problems will never, ever be solved. If you want change to happen, you must ensure that people take responsibility for those changes. In the instances where people don't take responsibility directly, then there has to be state enforcement. So when it talks about the Hutu people and how they solved the problem of the Hutu crisis, you must also understand that there's a very key variable, which was the state. And the state was willing and ready to use whatever means and whatever mechanism to ensure that people came to the table and to ensure that that problem was solved. So it wasn't just a case of everybody, it wasn't just a case of selling a rhetoric to people and making people buy into the ideology, and then everyone just came together and magically the problems were solved. There was the carrot and the stick method. The people who refused to have those negotiations, the people who refused to carry out those confessions were punished, and nobody can deny that. So to that extent, we don't think the argument stands. But when you speak about climate change, and he says, oh, with climate change, the approach has been good, everybody has come together, we have spread the responsibility across. And that is exactly why we haven't seen any serious strides with climate change. That's why we haven't seen any solutions to climate change. That is why the problem is exacerbating by the day. Because there's no authority, central authority, to enforce like that people should actually solve that problem. And yes, everybody now agrees that there's a problem with climate change. Everybody now agrees that it's a menace. But what has been done to solve the problem of climate change? How many states have been willing to make concessions? So they want a fancy world where everyone agrees theoretically to the problem, but people don't actually solve the problem. From CO, we are more pragmatic. We believe that change only happens when you make people to feel an increased sense of responsibility and an increased sense of participation in solving the problem. But a lot of the debate evolves around that issue, of crime, and I think there's been some misconception in the debate from the opening. Before I take you, I would like to analyze our contribution to the debate. So now, from closing opposition, we want to solve a problem. At the end of the day, all the bullshit they tell you from closing government boils down to us solving the problem. And those are the lenses you must use to view the debate. What side better solves the problem? On their side, you amplify the role of biology, you amplify the role of pathology, and every big word Ejim uses. But what you do, what is guaranteed, is that you reduce the responsibility of the people that exist within those systems. The point is that with crime, right, you can allow nuances to enforce punishments. I'm all trying to analyze this, but I don't feel they got it. But understand this, see, and you see why. With crime, right, the state can say, okay, you didn't know, you shot this person mistakenly, right? So we will reduce the punishment that we are going to give to you since you didn't know what you did. The point is, the reason why in crime we consider nuances is because of punishments. The point is that with ideologies like feminism, like feminism, there aren't any serious criminal punishments. So there is no reason for us to be aversive. There's no reason for us to be reluctant to ensure that we create change. The point about these ideologies is that they require a moral appeal. Moral appeal means that there has to be necessarily an increased sense of responsibility for the people, because it's not like crime where there's that outcome of punishment. So with crime, since there's punishment, let's compromise. But we don't think that is the case with these kind of things, because with feminism, it's about changing the narratives that people have, toxic narratives that people have. And narratives change by information, by education, and most of all, by individual responsibility. It cannot be fought with punishment like crime. That means vitally that since we are relying on individual responsibility, theoretically, we must take a hard stance. Since there's no punishment that is going to make people to be deterred, we have to take a strong moral stance and ensure that everybody who aligns with that particular principle aligns with that principle 100%. When you compromise the principle, it means that people who do not fully buy into your analogy can find leverage in the principle. So people within your own ideology are also going to be perpetrators. So we will have a feminism where we have active perpetrators being categorized as victims. They are going to be there permanently. There's no real change that's going to happen in that system. There's no real punishment for them, and that's why we can't stand with that. Yeah.
Okay. So can you address the issue of responsibility by critiquing the problematic ideas of women without denying them victimhood because of how it criminalizes how they are reacting to this survival?
Yeah, your argument on victimhood is largely assumptive, and I'm getting into your material now. So the point and the problem with your argument about the problem with your argument about victimhood is that it assumes that all women, it's generally assumptive that all women are carrying out patriarchy to survive, and that in itself is stereotypal, because you are putting every single woman in one bracket. You say, since you are a woman, since you are within the system, that automatically means you are carrying out whatever the oppression to survive. The problem is that many women benefit from patriarchy, because ultimately patriarchy comes with some perks, because it means that some women don't have to pay bills. It means some women don't have to worry about the futures of their children. So see, no matter how infinitesimal the benefits are, some women do carry out patriarchy because of the benefits that they want. But more importantly, some women do it because of their own religious inclinations, which to a large extent are also personal. Because if you are carrying out a particular action, if you believe in the oppression of women because of your religion, it's because you want to gain benefits from your religion. You want to gain benefits with God. So ultimately, that cannot be the concern of feminism as a movement. We cannot be saying, oh, they don't believe in feminism because of their God. They are going to gain advantages from their God, but you know what? Feminism is always going to suffer. At the end of the day, what you must deliberate on is what side brings change. These guys want a world where we say, oh, you guys, there are biological reasons, there are pathological reasons, and all those things. We want a world where everybody takes responsibility, and even if there's any damage, even if anybody suffers in the now, we believe that is the only way we can create change, since we don't have the state apparatus to enforce punishments.
Yeah. Right. Thank you all for what has been an interesting debate. The judges will leave the room to go and deliberate, and hopefully we'll be back soon with some results. Thank you.
Compound, and here I will put the percent CL by mass. So first we can think about sodium chloride, and I'll do all of these in a different color just to make things interesting. So sodium chloride, well, the average atomic mass of chlorine is 35.45, and if we divide that by the average atomic mass of the entire compound, the entire molecule here, well, then we're going to have the percent chlorine by mass. So that's going to be 35.45 divided by Sodium has an average atomic mass of 22.99, and then the chlorine, of course, has an average atomic mass of 35.45. So we have 35.45 divided by, open parentheses, 22.99 plus 35.45, close the parentheses. So it looks like it's a little bit over 60%. And that's actually enough for us to go on, because if this is approximately 61%, we see that that's very different than 73%. So already it's very clear that to the first question, is the sample pure sodium chloride? No, it's not, because it has a different percentage of chlorine by mass than pure sodium chloride.
If you know being the
So it must have been mixed in with something that has a higher percentage of chlorine by mass. So let's look at the other candidates. So we can look at sodium iodide. Sodium iodide. What's its percent chlorine by mass going to be? Well, this has no chlorine by mass. So this is 0. So go ahead. Sodium.
I was so dead sure that you would say, you know, say and it wasn't affecting South Africans. I miss it, that's why I was always thinking
Ampa. What do you call? Oh, defending champion. Ampa. Oh, Ampa. Look to your left. Ampa, look to your left. Indico Prosper says hi.
Whatever right or leverage he had to say hi, he lost it over here. Thank you very much.
He lost it on both panels.
Indico. So, Prosper, after all the call out, Indico last you. Please, I have spoken once, I have spoken twice. What is important is salvation.
Coming to this tournament, my goal objective was 1, and then it was achieved. Yes, thank you very much.
Which was to shoot you already. For clarity's sake, so we are just here to beat Prosper.
Yes, that's what I came to do. It was achieved. I can go home in peace.
But how sure can we be?
Because
Ampa.
Both panels. The thing is this. I have other things to do. I have a test tomorrow. But I'm here not because
I'm happy to know that I've been able to help someone self-actualize. So I'll go to bed sleeping and happy. My brother, you have self-actualized through my efforts. Master, this response here, I know why you didn't win that round.
And then, you see, for someone who has been talking about Karim, he partnered a former champion of the Ghana Universities Debate Championship, a former second best speaker at GUDC, and then he still had a single digit point, just like the inflation of Ghana some years back. Please, like, you don't have any other thing to say. What's the excuse now? You dragged Isaac Dia, you owe Isaac Dia an apology. You need to pacify and appease him. Like former champion, national champion. See what you did to him. 5 points after 4 rounds on both panels. Really?
Well. The thing is, I could always appease myself knowing that I have fallen once and you are falling 10 times. So in that regard, I can still keep getting carried. No, guys, but wait. How can you say Indico doesn't win because the time he beat you in this one, he was third and you were fourth? Like how? Oh no, like how would you be happy in being the best of losers?
This is not a debate about ideological purity as to the kind of victory that is pure. Victory is victory. Exactly. Like, I don't care whether it was a pure and it was no, I don't care.
You beat him.
Yes, I beat you. Like both panels. Thank you very much. And I beat you when you were being carried by the former national champion. Like, nothing for you to say, please.
That should be put on record. Former national champion.
Second best speaker at GUDC.
I am indeed speechless.
So the victory has been won for Hogwarts. On to the next one. Thank you very much. even the battle of the losers, you still lost. Thank you very much.
Well, I just pray the tab will vindicate me. Wait. But what do you mean by battle of the losers? So you think even if you had 10 points from the last one, he wouldn't do?
You said 10, even if you had 15, he still wouldn't break.
Why do you act as if you don't fall into the same bracket?
Like I said, when I came here the first day, Prosper was talking about how he was going to fly through the tournament. After the first 2 rounds, when I asked him how the going was, he said, "Oh, the Lord is his strength." He didn't take that into account.
Oh yeah,
when he was saying he was going to swim. I'm coming. Hold on. He didn't take that into account when he said he was going to fly in the tournament.
No, so are you trying to say Boso, who was a swing, had more points than Prosper?
I think so. Boso, and then it's not just Prosper and the former national champion. Like, we should put it in context, proper context. Thank you very much. Proper context.
See, I feel we are ignoring the biggest part of this discussion. I indeed flew in this tournament because I found Christ, and I am now a full-fledged Christian who is working his way towards salvation, and that is what is important.
No, but then the thing is this. So for someone who talks about how, like, at every point in time, people are being carried, and all that, we all know Isaac Dia's pedigree. You don't have a pedigree, and then you've been able to. I'm coming. Wait.
No, but before then, so we know Isaac Dia, former national champion.
Yes, and second best.
And they have 5 points at the end of 4 rounds, so you know whose fault it is.
Oh no, it's clear. It's clear. Like, it's very clear. Like, it's very, very, very clear. Very clear. Very clear. Like, very clear. Like, Prosper has got nothing on, like, Isaac Dia. We all know whose fault is it. If someone has been able to carry JJ to win national championships, then he pairs you, and then he gets a return of 5 points.
This is sacrilege.
We all know, like, we know this. Thank you very much. Any comments? Yeah. So for me, I came here to do one thing. It has been achieved. Like I said, there's no a battle like this. Has nothing to do with ideological purity. A win is a win on both panels. And then that's all. I'm going to write my test. Thank you very much.
All right. And I'm wishing you well on your attempt to join Konglu. Okay.
Like this was that they joined Konglu like
so
2 years ago.
You are hearing it here first.
Ampa, you didn't get the newsletter.
Because I heard the analysis from Tintin, and one of the reasons why your consideration will be very important to join Konglu is that they need to get somebody in Konglu who always contributes, and then they would like not take it. So that's really important.
Basically, they are looking for a clown.
As it stands now, there is nobody in Konglo who speaks and like his views are not really important. So they need to get somebody who speaks, and then they wouldn't actually take. So they will be expecting to have you there.
In as much as I want to join Konglo, I don't want to go and then take Ziad's job over or take
Is Ziad in this room? Ziad, make a comment.
Where's Ziad?
Where is Ziad? Because he wasn't in the final, so he shouldn't be outside. So where is Ziad?
Well, let's go and do this one final. You see, but Prosper Michael. But going forward, what's next?
Is there another call out you should expect?
Well.
Oh, but then for me, like I think Hogwarts, the sample space for Hogwarts is very minimal, and then I agreed with what was said. It's over a year, so from now.
But then on record, Inukwe actually beat all NRA members he called. Like, where's Ralph?
No. Like, this has nothing to do with Ralph. Like, it has nothing to do. Like, Ralph, like, knows his level. It's Prosper that needed to be put into place. Thank you very much.
No, well, I'm not going to allow you to insult a dear member of the NRA Council.
This is not an insult. Boso tell you, facts don't care about feelings, and then these are facts.
But Prosper, why are you fighting for NRA? Like, I thought NRA is supposed to be showing their level in the rounds. Like, why are you advocating for that?
That's why we had an NRA member in the final.
Yeah, we actually had an NRA member in the final, exactly. But beyond that, facts actually care about your feelings.
You see, this is the thing I don't like about Prosper. Prosper was crying.
Any ad hominem picture?
No, this has nothing to do with ad hominem. He was talking about Michael Lampa. When they even called Michael Lampa out, they were talking about how Michael was being carried. And then they set a metric. You, even Boso, PRO, like propagandist of NRA, you were the one setting the metrics. That
Please, I didn't have the full facts. Apparently, I was deceived.
No,
but not by NRA. By someone else.
You are a victim.
Yes, I was a victim.
You see, and then they set up the whole facts, and then now when it comes, and then the facts are looking at them in the face, and then they're on the losing side. Then they begin what I call selective amnesia, when they choose when they want to go with facts, and then when they want to go with emotions. Like, it has nothing to do.
Oh, no,
I think
actually,
when he, like, Prosper, is able to, like, get some of these things right, then maybe probably someday in the near future he could be a top 10 speaker somewhere, or he could break like top 4, top 3. Like, I don't know.
Somewhere in the future, but you don't see that coming.
You know, only God knows. He said he has found God, so maybe God will give him strength to do that.
Amen. But then the thing is that
I could give you an extensive analysis as to how facts actually care about your feelings and
if you have this analysis, you should have helped the national, like the former champion, and then done bettered your points aggregate of 5. Like,
so I
this one, you know, need
the only extension has the extension
it's okay, we understand.
See, like I'm sure he's given extensions and they were not relevant. I am not sure relevant because they were fought on a lot of times on both panels. I think the extension or whatever analysis is going to do would achieve the same results. Thank you very much.
Like the consistency is important. Fought on both panels.
Yeah, but like yes, like, proper context.
Actually, nobody saw sense in the argument.
No. Both of them, like both panels.
Ziad is in.
Ziad, please come and take my place.
Ziad, how are you feeling?
Oh, but by the way, I equally called out Ziad and I beat him on one of the panels. If that can placate me for anything, I would like you guys to know that yes, I actually Ziad extension of my promise. Please, whatever I said.
This is the final after the final.
Do not cancel me.
In other news, Erasmus is about to win his trophy. He's dropped the track for the Empower entry. It's called Famosio. It's a very nice song. I'd wish everybody would go and listen to it. Erasmus is an awesome musician. Yeah.
Erasmus, that advertisement will cost you 500 Ghana cedis, please. Kindly come and see the NRA Council to pay.
Do you take checks?
Oh yes, we do, please.
Then I'll check you.
And Indukwe, we understand. We understand you are here just to beat Prosper, right? I was here to make an attempt to defend the trophy. Are you trying to say Prosper was here just to make this happen?
No truer words have been said.
I won't honor him with a response. I won't do that.
In other news, someone complained that we didn't.
So what's on a news, I
am an impartial, objective observer, only letting people know the facts as they happen, because facts don't care about our feelings. But yes, someone was saying.
Emmanuel Halo, that's something to say.
Prosper also.
Okay, so in a conversation that some people were having this morning, someone was talking about lamenting the fact that in the run-up to Hogwarts, in all the hyping we're doing for Hogwarts, there were no judges' profiles, and that it is discriminatory. The sport is being discriminatory with relation to judges. What are your takes on this? Prosper, since you are known for giving good analysis on issues, please let it count here.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Okay, we'll move to Indukwe. Indukwe always pays attention to the right things, so.
Okay, so this has nothing to do with Hogwarts, but then I think to an extent is discriminatory. So when you go, when we have a bad call or we feel like a judge was not good, we hear a lot of people moaning, bemoaning the fact that they were done dirty and then they weren't given the kind of points that they deserve and all that. But then when we have judges who are outstanding, who try their possible best to be outstanding, I think they should be given that kind of recognition. Yeah, so over some time now, you'd have us awarding top 10 speakers, and then when it comes to say judges, we do 1 or 2. Like those nitty-gritties, go on to show, puts the kind of value we place on judging, for me, I think, into context, and I think that's not the best. Yeah, I think we can really do more to encourage people to go out and then be judges, because for some people, the only reason why, they could equally speak, but then they feel that, as judges, the kind of recognition that they would get, it wouldn't be as much as when they speak. So you'd have very good people leaving, the bench to come up the podium to speak. And I think we really need to do much to incentivize people to be judges. Thank you very much.
Justice for the justices.
Let me ask a question. Maybe we also need to really assess why we like idolizing things so much. So when you go for Worlds, there's no best judges awards at Worlds. Worlds, the appreciation for being a good judge is breaking as a judge. Do you get it? And even that is subjective to a lot of things. Judging with CAP for them to have an opinion of you, etc. It's not that here we actually appreciate judges more because there are always, almost always 10 medals for judges, all those things. But maybe judges themselves should also be talking more. Do you get it? Because it's the speakers that are usually hyping up their teammates. But I'm not even comfortable with judges even becoming the spotlight in debate tournaments. Because I personally don't think referees should be the conversation in any sport. If referees are the conversation, then there's usually a problem because of a controversial decision made or anything. Even when we talk about judges, what's it for? It's when a judge fucks you up that you talk about him. When a judge gives you a first, you don't go and say he's a good judge. You just keep quiet. I was first. When you are fourth, you say, oh no, Franco gave me fourth. So
Franco gave you fourth.
So maybe we need to evaluate these things more. But I don't think we should idolize ourselves. So, but the sports, we must keep on growing, get more people involved. So it's not about the awards and all those things. I think we should just change our value systems. So as a judge, if you come for a tournament, and that's why we shouldn't have people always judging or people always speaking. So because maybe that's because it happens that way too, then it's a problem for those who are always judging. Because if this is how judges are regarded, then it means you are always within that space. But when you speak a little, you judge a little, it even helps you perspective and everything else. It's an entire sport. Unlike maybe soccer where you're either a player or a referee or a coach, you don't have to choose in debate. You can always rotate at every point in time. So we must work on these things.
Thank you for your input. People say again that the lack of recognition, the lack of recognition for judges is one of the reasons why judges don't put in extra effort in. That's what people say, in preparing themselves for tournaments, and so. Shut up. And so people allege that a lot of the vast majority of judges are not sure. How do I put it politely, safe? Yes, I'm a bon. Erasmus.
Yeah, maybe that's how they think, but I don't think that's the right kind of thinking, because if we are very honest, what's the right kind of preparation to be a judge? As a debater, when you are more abreast with issues, you can speak, you can judge. When you have good speaking style, it means you are going to give better oral feedback with good structure and everything. So the whole thing is dependent on your resolve to improve. Most of the time, what we have is people you not wanting to put in, thinking that judge is about the lower effort, right? And then moving into it. But it's a whole collective thing where you really have to put yourself into the sport, being prepared to train yourself in all regards, and then to be able to do it. And I don't think it's wholly true also that good judges don't get recognized. They do. A lot of CAP opportunities go to people we believe are good judges, not people who we can't trust their judging ability. There are people who sit on your panel and you're thank God, because they would understand the emotion and everything that happened. So all of those things count. And it's not the physical medal being gold or bronze. It's really about the conversation within the societies. Most of the people who have trophies, you can't see BNI 7 trophies when you walk. I'm not sure if he knows where all of them are, but we all know that he has done a lot and he has done very well. So it's really also about that. If you decide to train collectively and wholly.
Okay, Indukwe.
Okay, another thing I think is the problem is regards the way in certain places judges are treated. So when someone tries to speak and then the person feels that he is not matching up and then he still wants to stay within the debate space, the person then goes ahead to judge because they think it's
As the
like it
person
requires
they go to judge or is pushed to judge?
both. Sometimes they go to judge, and in other instances they are pushed to judge because they feel that judging requires less effort as speaking would do, where you would have to research and etc. etc. I also think that is one of the problems. So usually there's this perception about people who are perceived to be career judges because you feel like those people have been pushed to go there, or they've chosen an easy option within the debate space, and then that's why some speakers will not necessarily give them the kind of respect, the kind of credence, the kind of validation that they need. Yeah.
All right, if you can call everybody back inside. Thank you for your very short discussion. We are ready to go. Jennifer, please let them know we are ready. No, so I'm inviting. I'm calling everybody come. Yes, well, we recognize. No, hold on, I'll call you. You sit down, I'll call you. Everybody inside, the teams. OG, where's Isaac, JJ and Karim? F, calm down. All right, so can we go on? Bo, can we go on? All right, so we have reached the decision on the winners for this round, but before we roll out the award winners, please, we would like to invite the convener for this year's edition of Hogwarts, Ms. Jennifer Sarkodie. Please, a round of applause for her to give us a few words before we depart.
Hi guys, good evening. So I just wanted to say something small. It was a great honor to be chosen to organize this great and prestigious competition, and I would like to thank everybody that's made it to come and also paid Rigo, because it was hard getting people to pay up, and that affected organizing towards this tournament, right? And so I hope that you guys have had a great time, even though not a lot of you guys came for socials. But I'm glad that everybody was able to enjoy this experience, and I hope that next year would be better. Yeah. Okay. And also, any suggestions, any comments you have about how things were organized, you can approach me on that and I can give explanations. Yeah. All right, thank you.
All right, so please a round of applause for her. We would like to start the awards by recognizing the top 10 speakers. So Tayo and Kobe, please, if you could go downstairs. No, top 10 speakers. So the bottom 5 will receive handshakes, and then the top 5 will receive medals. Please, a round of applause for our CAP members who are coming to the representation. Yarfa Lanshaw. Right, coming in 10th place with an average speaker score of 80.5. That should tell you how good a tournament is. I mean, I think we can all be proud of ourselves at the level of growth that we've seen in terms of debate. So to have the 10th best speaker average 80.5, and I'm sure when you see the tab, you see how the scores were very good. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Ampa. Coming in 9th place. Please hurry up and come for your handshake, why? Face the camera. Anyway. Coming in 9th place with an average speaker score of 80.9 In fact, anyway, yeah. Mr. Jacob Johnson Attakpah. Where is JJ? It's just a handshake, so. Right, also coming in 8th place, also with an average of 80.9, but he beats Mr. Attakpah because of head-to-head. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Andrew Stekpete. Coming in 7th place with an average of 81, Mr. Erasmus Segbefia. For a handshake. You will get say you will greet Kobe. Right. Coming in 6th place with an average speaker score of 81.1, Mr. Joseph Mreku. I'm told he's not here, sir. Now, the top 5 who will be awarded medals. Coming in 5th place with an average speaker score of 81.2, Mr. Ibrahim Abdul Karim. How the mighty are falling. Right. Coming in 4th place with an average speaker score of 82, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Prince Asama. Right. Coming in 3rd place with an average speaker score of 82.2. Also, second and third place. Second place is a tie. Sorry, second place is a tie. But then the names are mentioned the way they are because of head-to-head. So coming in 3rd place with an average of 82.2, Mr. Isaac Wache. Coming in 2nd place, also with an average speaker score of 82.2, Mr. Faithfulness Okom. Best Speaker, Hogwarts 2019. I'm sure a lot of CAs have mentioned his name severally for this same award. I think at some point he has to stop receiving the award. Ladies and gentlemen, for the umpteenth time, best speaker for this tournament, Mr. David Ejim, with an average speaker score of 82.7. A round of applause for him. It's a very impressive feat. And, boss, at some point you have to stop. All right, congratulations, David. We want to award, no people don't go. We want to award our top 3 judges. Coming in 3rd place, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Vincent Attakpah. At least one Attakpah is winning something. At the very least. I'm not saying anything. Right. And then coming in 2nd place, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kojo Pinka. Right, ladies and gentlemen, a resounding round of applause for Mr. Ezekiel Adi, who is best judge at this tournament. Right. CAP has a special award. The person who has suffered the most in this tournament. Ladies and gentlemen, justice for Indukwe. Oh, come for a handshake. Ooh, bleedy angaza. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take you out of your misery. Those of you participated in this debate. This has been a very interesting debate competition. Kudos to all the participants. You did well. I invite the convener of Hogwarts 2019, as has been the tradition, to do the presentation of the trophy. Oh, a round of applause for that. So, should I mention 1st to 4th? Okay, I'll start from 4th. So, we were unanimous on 1st. 7 of us all agreed who should be first. Between second and third, it was a 4-3 split. 7 of us as well agreed who should be fourth. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, a round of applause for the team that came in fourth place, team opening opposition, Erasmus and Andrews. Right, a round of applause as well is in order for the team that came in third place on a 4-3 split. Team closing government. So, by necessary implication, you should know that the team that came second won on the 4-3, like came second on the 4-3 split, but it doesn't really matter because the team that by a unanimous decision, impressive, has won the 2019 edition, and we hope to see you guys next year. Please make it a point to come. Of Hogwarts round robin, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome team closing opposition.
Hello guys, thank you for a very wonderful tournament. I would like to invite you guys to Nigeria, and for the University of Ilorin Debate Club, we'll have a franchise open, which like Hogwarts would be in its 3rd edition this year. It's the World War, Emirates World War 3.0. I think the first edition was won by Percy and Faithfulness, and it should be very nice to have you guys come around to Nigeria, but not only Nigeria, to Ilorin. The dates are September 19th to 24th, so it's very close, and would be very glad to have you guys. Alima is convener. She was, I think, supposed to be this year for GEDC, but she couldn't make it due to exams, right? So for World War, what we do every year, and we started 2017, is to have a mainstream and also have a women's open, which is not a stream, but a tournament on its own. So you could partner anybody, you could even partner a judge in the mainstream for the women's open tournament. So it's exclusively to women. And also have our novice stream. So for World War, we're having 3 trophies in one tournament. So if you don't win one, at least you win. And if you don't win anything, you'd win in some other areas too. So it would be really nice to have you guys come to Nigeria. The details are on the WhatsApp platforms, WADC, and all of the groups. So if there are any questions, just ask us. It would be nice to have you guys around. Thank you very much.
All right, so also, everything that KNUST is doing is geared towards PEDC this year. And so the various institutions here, I know every institution here has registered for PEDC. Deadline for early registration payment is still 30th September. For Ghanaian schools, you should expect a major announcement within the next week or two. Foreigners, there will also be some major announcements too. But please, go back to your institutions. A lot of us are reopening. Write the letters early. For those of you whose institutions have released funds now, because I know some institutions, their university have released funds now. If bank charges are a problem for you, contact LOC. We can find a way of coming to wherever you are, even if it's in Nigeria, and take the money and put it in the account so we can evade bank charges. Please. Are we still streaming? PAEDC is very important for the